Hey guys, welcome back. Ricky here. So a lot of folks have been asking me, how do you sharpen a boning knife or a bird's beak knife? This here is my DIY sharpening rod. Now it does look kind of goofy from where you're sitting, but I promise you it is actually very handy and very useful. The red side here, what you're looking at is just regular sandpaper. This is wet dry sandpaper from 3M. It's 150 grit. On the other side here, this gray paper here is actually 3M's sharpening film, and this is about a 400 grit film or 15 microns or so. On the other side, I have a piece of suede that I had left over from another project. This is an 8 by or 9 by 3 piece of suede with a 5 micron sharpening compound. And so this is my polishing agent that I'm using. And so the red is for, bringing the knife back to life from a very dull edge. And most of my sharpening will be done on the 400 grit side, and then afterwards I will just polish the knife. This here, all in all, cost me less than $5 to make. The red sandpaper, I had some laying around, so it didn't cost me anything. And sandpaper shouldn't cost you more than $1, $2 per sheet. Maybe very expensive paper might cost you a little bit more than that. And in terms of the actual rod, this is just a roller that I bought from the dollar store. For most people, this is something that you have never heard of. This here is I guess they call these gardening tools whetstones, and these are strictly made in Japan. I've never seen them anywhere else. This is actually made by Suhiro. It's really nice. It's a 200 grit stone. These are actually made with one side being curved, kind of like if you imagine like the tunnel for a train, where the sides are flat, the bottom flat, and the very top part is curved. And that's the only way I can describe it. These you would use to sharpen those reaper tools. You guys watch those cartoons with death reapers. That's what these are actually made to sharpen. And so we don't use them here in the States. I think if you are a farmer, you might probably, have a tool like this, but I've never seen them in any sort of, even on Amazon, I've never seen them for sale. I've looked and I really can't find any. I will leave a link to a stone, of this actual stone, on eBay. So I know that they're sold on eBay from a very reputable seller. I recommend transfer tape. You can use double-sided tape, but double-sided tape is a little bit harder and it doesn't adhere to different surfaces really well. There are many types of transfer tape. I have two here. So this one is called the 3M X series, which is about $3 to $4 per roll for a 60-yard roll. And this here, I forgot what series this is called. I think this is the 662 series or something like that. But it's about $20 per roll. It's about 4 to 5 times stronger than the X series, but I have used the X series for this project here, and I can tell you that it's just fine. It's holding on just fine. Unless you actually are actively trying to pull it off, it will work just fine. So save your money and buy the X series. But for those who are planning to use transfer tape for other things, then yeah, go ahead and buy the $20 roll. It's worth your money if you guys are going to be using it a whole lot. I had a bunch of these films laying around from previous plate projects. I have them ranging from 400 grit all the way up to like 80,000 grit. But for those who don't want to buy anything, use sandpaper. It works just as well. Then you can choose your own grit and do whatever you want with it. And for the leather, I had some suede laying around, so I cut my own suede. This blue compound is a 5 micron compound. It works really well, and so it works just well enough. I mean, I can go higher if I want to, but for a boning knife and a paring knife, you don't really need to go anything higher than 3,000 or 4,000 grit. Putting it together is really simple. You basically just take whatever strip you wanted and you would just, put it on the side. I put the transfer tape on the actual strip of the sandpaper first, and that made it really easy to just pull it off and just kind of attach it on the rod wherever I wanted. Then I just lined up the other side and did the same thing. And then I just threw on my suede, and then I had my rod. And from there, I threw on the compound. That only took a couple of seconds. Really, the fun part is actually how to sharpen your knife. Now, for those who have never sharpened a kind of a reverse curved knife, you have to know a couple of things. And the most important thing to understand is that you have to go with the curvature of the knife. You can see here that as I pull and I bend my wrist to allow for the curvature to actually work with the rod, you don't want to fight it. You don't want to pull in a straight fashion, because when you pull in a linear fashion, when you get towards the end and where the curve really gets aggressive, that curvature will actually cut into the paper even though you're pulling away from it. So you want to pull in an arc fashion and allow the arc to dictate your sharpening. And so just remember, just go with the curve. Don't fight it. Allow your wrist to be flexible, and you want to just use your wrist to go with the curve. You always want to go edge trailing in this point. You never want to go edge leading, because going edge leading, you'll cut into the paper, and that's something you definitely don't want. And so for me, using my wrist and allowing my wrist to just do the work for me is the easiest way to sharpen a beak's knife or a beak's paring knife. For your boning knives, now boning knives are what they call reverse curve knives. So there's two curves. You have your first curve, which is your belly, and a reverse curve, which is your guard. And so some knives have a much more aggressive guard than others. This one here by Enso, it's a very aggressive guard, which is fun to look at, fun to use, but also a bigger pain to sharpen. However, you can do it very easily. I definitely recommend you breaking this into two sections. Don't sharpen the entire knife in one stroke. As an end user, you won't know if the knife was sharpened in one stroke or in two different segments. It's easier to sharpen a knife in two sections. Now, because the blade isn't curved inwards, it's a little bit different from the bird's beak blade. So what I like to do is I actually like to start from the heel of the knife and go this way. And I simply let the knife, again, I let the knife do the work. You can pull in a slightly more linear fashion because of the way the curves are done, at least on this knife at least. Some knives will have much more aggressive curves on that guard, and so you'll have to figure out which is your knife. So even though this knife has a very aggressive guard here, it's very tall, it's actually still very easy to pull in a very straight linear fashion from the heel to the middle of the knife. Now if you really wanted to, yes, you can pull from the heel to the tip, but for many people who are starting out, I find that may be a little bit too demanding on your wrist and on the control of the knife. So I find it a little easier just to take your time and go from the heel to the middle of the knife and just go back and forth. And with a Sharpen compound, because the leather actually gives quite a, well, I would say it doesn't give a lot, but it does give some. You can go from heel to tip if you are comfortable doing that. And that's really how I would do it. And again, you only really need 10-15 strokes per side. And the point of this is for the compound to pull off any of the micromaterials that are left on the blade from the sharpening portion. And if you feel uncomfortable, then just go ahead and do sections at a time. And that's really it. So all in all, everything here, I mean, like I said, this only cost me a few bucks to put together. Even if you were to buy this from scratch and you were to buy the rod for $1.50, and you were to buy some Sharpen compound, would be a few bucks. You can probably just pick up some cheap stuff on Amazon. This is what this is. This is a really cheap, this is like a $5 Sharpen compound that I bought from Amazon. It works really well. I'm happy with it. And then your sandpaper. For most of us, we have sandpaper laying around. That works really well. You don't have to go anything fancy. But if you guys are interested in the film, I do have some spare film that I have laying around. So I'll put together a packet of these things and I'll leave it in the video description. And you can buy strips of these. I'll put one of each grit from 400 grit all the way up to like 80,000 grit. And so it'll be a packet of 5 strips. It'll be super cheap and super easy to use. Well, that is it for this video. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is, again, a really simple tool that you can make for yourself to sharpen your recurve knives, your boning knives, and your beaks knives. And a lot of folks seem to be having trouble with sharpening these knives. You don't need anything fancy. Now, before I forget, you certainly can use a hand sharpener for these knives. The only drawback that I see with a sharpener like this is that you are limited to what the manufacturer gives you. And so this is a coarse and fine, and I don't really know what that means. It may be 300 grit up to 1,000 grit. So you really don't have the option of changing grit levels and changing your compounds. Doing something like this that costs a lot less, this one here costs like 20 bucks. You can make this for less than $5, and you can have an unlimited choice of grits and polishing compounds. So that's really the fun thing about that. And also, these are much better for sharpening your boning knives. Boning knives, because of their double curvature, the reverse curve, it's kind of awkward sharpening a reverse curve knife on a hand sharpener. I've tried it. It does work, but I don't like it. And so again, your mileage may vary. You may find that these are very comfortable to use and very easy to use. That's fine. So for those who are looking for a tutorial, I apologize that this is not a proper in-depth tutorial. I will put together a video of me just sharpening one knife, and so I'll make one for the boning knife, or the reverse curve boning knife, and I will make one for the beaks paring knife. Alright, just bear with me. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. After my best knife picks in 2017 video was released, a number of you guys actually reached out and asked me if I was able to get a discount code for Enso knives. And yes, so they actually replied with a very positive yes. I will leave a link in the video description to the page that will actually list all of the products that the code is good for. And for those who don't know a whole lot about Enso knives, I will leave a link in the video description or the card here to my 2017 best knives of the year. You will see that Enso actually made the cut for a number of categories. Enso really made a huge impression on me in 2017. They made 3 knives that really stood out to me. And the first knife is the 8-inch chef knife. The second knife was the Nakiri, and the third knife, and by far one of my favorite knives to use, period, is the 5.5-inch prep knife. The 5.5-inch prep knife also happens to be my wife's favorite knife as well. It's a really great knife. All these knives here come razor sharp out of the box. They also have a really nice VG10 core steel and a very comfortable handle and a very beautiful tsuchime or hammered Damascus finish. The Enso cutlery knives have a very special place in my heart because they give you a lot of performance for your buck, and definitely one of the most well put together knives that I have used in my kitchen. Alright guys, well thank you again for being here. We'll catch you in the next video.